Hi, I'm Melody Travers, coming to you from Crazy Town. In this bonus episode, Jason, Rob, and Cher talk with Douglas Rushkoff, host of Team Human, a podcast that grapples with complex issues of agency, social justice, and all those quirky non-binary corners of life. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want others to get the Crazy Town experience, please hit the share episode button and send it to your community, or drop us 5 stars. Now to the show.
Hey, Jason and Cher. Welcome to Crazy Town. Big news. We've got a fourth in here. We've got Douglas Rushkoff, the prolific author, the documentarian, podcaster extraordinaire, professor. Really excited. And Douglas, I want to extend to you the same invitation that I want to extend to these two guys. And that's, I know how, well, especially here in the Pacific Northwest, the weather can get really down, really dreary. So I want to invite you guys to my new mansion on Miami Beach. We can have a nice little party there.
PCI salary, you bought a mansion?
Yeah, of course I did. Well, I didn't actually buy it. So I don't know if you guys have seen this awesome offer, but I got an offer. If I just make a donation to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, I get entered into a raffle for a 6,000 square foot mansion on Miami Beach. And
wow.
Okay.
6,000 square foot?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to win. So I just wanted to go ahead and invite you guys to a giant party down there.
It's called wishful thinking.
And how long is this 6,000 square foot mansion going to last, you think, on Miami Beach?
I don't know. You don't live in the moment, man. Come on.
As long as his liver lasts, that's all I care about right now.
Right.
Excellent.
No, it's amazing to me. That was a real ad that I got somewhere. I don't know, on email or social media somewhere.
So it sounds like you're bringing up classic Crazy Town type stories. So yeah. Okay.
Well, that reminds me. You guys read the New York Times? You've heard of that paper, right?
Yes.
Look,
yes.
You addicted me to it. I used to be one of these guys who never read the news, and now I have to read it every morning. Thank you for that.
Does a kid come by your neighborhood, Douglas, and toss it on your porch? The New York Times?
No, there's these people in a car, people from Yonkers. They come in like a old station wagon. It's a married couple. Okay. And the man's driving, and the woman's kind of in the other seat or in the back, and she's kind of throwing it
I
like
think that
5
tells
in the
you
morning.
Everything you need to know about where our economy's gone. It used to be little 14-year-old kids on their bike, right?
Yeah.
And now it's this older couple who can't retire because they can't make ends meet.
Right.
Yeah. Lovely. Anyways, I get this digest from the New York Times every day, this like little newsletter thing. And, they're doing a lot of coverage of climate change these days. They have a whole new section on it. So there are all these like climate articles talking about how awful the climate situation is. And then you scroll down and then they've got promos for their wire cutter thing, which is, I guess, their like consumer products division or whatever, where they recommend
gadgets.
So right in there was this great ad or, their review of the best outdoor heaters, those propane natural gas heaters, so you can sit outside and basically heat the outside in the coldest days possible. Let's just go and heat the outdoors.
That's direct climate change, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But that's better than what air conditioning, because then air conditioning is like so self-defeating, right? You're heating the world in order to have a cooler room, and there's just no way to win that one.
Right, so you're heating to heat. Right.
At least you're heating to heat. With air conditioning, you're heating to cool, but you're heating directly with just the outblow of the air from the air conditioner, right? It makes more heat than it does cool. And then long term, with all the electricity it's using, you're also making next summer hotter through
it's beautiful
carbon.
Thing. And it's kind of like driving in a car, right? Because maybe 1% of the energy that's being consumed actually goes to, in this case, heating you versus the outside.
Right.
Let's just give us hot rocks when we're at a restaurant. Just like give us a big rock that we can sort of like, it's kind of in a pillow.
Or a blanket,
we
maybe.
kind of put our lap. Yeah.
I'm concerned about the editor over at the New York Times. Like, that person is putting out all this climate change stuff and selling outdoor heaters at the same time. That's a tough one to
There's no dissonance there. No,
The human brain is phenomenal. So
Really?
I have a fun one too. So I got on this little kerfuffle on the internet with some guy who was really promoting like savings for young people. And it was like, take 10%, whatever you can, and throw it in the stock market. That's the greatest thing you can do. And I'm like, and his argument is, it worked for me. I'm like, well, you're 55 years old or whatever. Of course it worked for you. But do you think that's going to work for a 22-year-old? Do you really think we're going to double the frickin' economy over the next 30 years so that all the stocks keep rising? And do you not know that most 22-year-olds I know are like freaked out that the world is getting destroyed by the very same companies that are on the stock market? So how does this make them feel if they put away some of their hard-earned money and it goes to the same shit that's killing them? So anyway, we didn't really agree.
Oh, really? I'm shocked.
Yeah, but most of the environmentalists I speak to still have S&P 500 index funds. Or they buy, like Ariel or Calvert or some,
EPS is the big thing.
Yeah,
EPS.
which is, and now you look at EPS, it's like you look at the top stocks in an S&P index fund. It's like Apple, Microsoft, Clorox, whatever. And then you look at the S&P filtered one, and it's like, okay, so it's missing like maybe Lockheed Martin and Philip Morris, but it's like Monsanto's still like on there, and it's like exactly. So what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, and if you really want money,
you're feeling good. You're feeling good and justifying your actions.
Yeah.
But if you want the money, you really want to go for that Philip Morris Monsanto one, though. That's the.
There's not
exactly.
Monsanto
You go
anymore.
the one just buy the filtered. Right. That's what I want. I want filtered things. There's got to be a motif fund that's stuff that other funds have cut out.
Maybe you could get Philip Morris, but only filtered cigarettes. That's the filter.
That's nice. The light cigarettes.
You know what I invest in, guys? I invest in the one that tracks how all of our elected officials invest.
Yes,
so there's these special funds that literally just follow what Nancy Pelosi's husband invests in, and they're making a killing.
It's
Absolute killing.
And you could get a left one and a right one. So whoever wins, whoever's companies. That's good.
I think they're probably both doing pretty well because that's something that brings them all together. That's bipartisan,
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing those crazy town stories, making us even a little bit crazier. I don't know if you realize, Douglas, that we kind of stole all three of those from some observations that you recently made in one of your podcast episodes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to quote. I'd actually like to call this an homage rather than an outright theft.
All right.
Well, so in a recent episode of Team Human, you were talking about trying to make sense of a world that's not functioning sensibly. And you, in your monologue, asked these three very questions. Why would homes on Miami Beach be selling for millions of dollars if that property were really going to be underwater in a decade?
Yeah.
Why?
I remember that, and I still don't know the answer.
I don't either.
Okay.
Number two. Why would so much of the world be business as usual if climate change were real?
Yeah, that's another one. Why would the world be business as usual if climate change is real? Why?
Number three. Let's see if
These are great questions. These are great questions.
Why is the stock market going up during a global plague?
Yeah. There you go. I mean, that one I kind of get, right? It's like whenever bad shit happens, the GDP goes up, right? If everyone got cancer today, all of a sudden the stock market would go up because it's great for, the cancer business. So I get that one kind of. It's still ironic or self-defeating or stupid. Or long term, it should go down.
Or crazy making.
I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy making.
So first question for you, Douglas. I mean, these are the kinds of questions that sort of define what we look at here in Crazy Town. And I wanted to know, how do you go about your own attempts at making sense when these questions are lying out there, when so many things aren't making sense?
Well, what I do is realize that the human condition itself is largely about being able to contend with paradox. I mean, that goes far back. That's to me, that's what the Bible is all about, is, this world that doesn't make sense. It's how do you defend your family and the rights of everybody else and civilization around you? I mean, it's all paradox. It's all these ambivalences that you have to manage. And I feel like that's the profound problem with our time, particularly in a digital media environment, is that people think that you get the answer and then you just pedal to the metal with that thing, right? So that you swallow the black pill and then you go into the QAnon answer, and we're going to get there, and we're going to expose the rapists and win the day and ring the bell and yay. Or you get the true social justice warriors who think that we're going to, overturn systemic racism and repair for this and get there and yay, and revolution happens. And it's like, no, it's all fucked up. And everything is paradoxical and folding in on itself. You can't ever really get there. And once you accept that we'll never ever really get there, justice is a compass, not a place, then it's like, it becomes a lot easier. It's not to say we're all compromised and all tainted and all sinful, but it's like nothing's complete, nothing's resolved, nothing's got that squeaky perfection that we're looking for. Nothing can be auto-tuned to its exact note, not in the real world. So then you get comfortable, which I am, you get comfortable with that. We're in that soft, squishy in between. We're not here, we're not there, we're not left, we're not right. We're just weird, squishy humans. And that could be crazy making if you're looking to lock in something. If you're going to lock and load and execute, and, then that's no good. Then you need certainty. But even you talk to a brain surgeon, they're like, I hope this works.
I think I'm cutting the right thing out.
Sort of reminds me of, my pop culture brain takes me to The Princess Bride, where one character says to the other, I must know, you must tell me. And he's like, get used to disappointment. I think that's right. Like living in, that uncomfortable space.
Right. And it's not uncomfortable. It's only uncomfortable if you can't tolerate not knowing,
Right.
Or living with uncertainty. Or I always think about it in terms of trade-offs. There are many strategies. There's many ways to win at chess, let's say, right? You can take all these different tactics. So and I sort of think of it as maybe contextual. What you decide to do should depend on the situation, situation dependency. So what strategy works, is going to depend on who you're playing with or against.
Right.
Won. And I think that's important to understand, like political arguments about how much centralization versus decentralization, or individual rights versus looking after the community needs. Well, those are all things that should flow and ebb and fluctuate depending upon, what's going on right now. So having these absolutes bums me out.
Can I say, Jason, the last time we played chess, I started winning, and then you just kicked the board. I remember that was your tactic.
Yeah. If I don't get what I want on the playground's gone.
You knocked over the pieces?
Just swiped them off the board. Threw a beer in my face. Yeah, that was bad.
So yeah, I mean, and that's my concern is that's the accelerationist's understanding of what to do. I was really pining for the last few weeks because Steve Bannon asked me to come on his podcast.
No,
and
are you serious?
I wasn't sure what to do because, my whole thing is always find the others, engage with the others. There's no one I won't engage with. But it's not just a pure engage with the others. This is engage with me on my podcast, War Room the Pandemic, alongside this and that. So it means something else. It's not a pure engagement with the other. It's like I don't have to jump in the boxing ring with Muhammad Ali to engage with the other, right? It's like, oh, wait a minute, that's not necessary. That's not engagement. This is something else. But I was a little concerned that there's so much overlap. We're looking for the same thing. When you look at his end state, what he's looking for, he talks about Catholic social teaching and subsidiarity and distributism and local economics and, personal autonomy and all really good things. It's just how we get there is do you want to kick the board,
and who
as
it's
you say?
For, right? And who it's for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we actually had this uncomfortable situation where we were talking about politics, one of our episodes a while ago, where it was like, you read some of these eco-fascist manifestos and you're kind of nodding like, yeah, we got a problem with the environment and there's too much consumerism but their solution is just to kill off a bunch of people who they define as the other.
Right.
So
well, that's
like,
a problem too. Right. Let's just ship them all on, put them on sinking boats into the ocean. But it's the kick the board. It's the knock the board over. And I get it. It's like things get to a peak and you can't take it anymore and you don't have tantric training or anything. So you're just going to, right? Just blow the thing up. Let's just come and get out of here already. And can you tolerate, not doing that? How do we all make it through this thing rather than, but I get it, and I feel like sometimes I even look at, my allies in the, Extinction Rebellion and other places. And it's like, they're saying, and they might be right, that we actually have to arrest the system at this point. We've got to, throw our shoes in the machine and just stop it. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of pain as a result of that. All the people whose, income is depending on their pensions that get, dividends from oil companies and,
or
they're going to be
tourism, what if you shut down the airline industry somehow? What happens,
Right.
Right.
Right. But the thing is, in my model or my theory of change, we develop enough compassion and local resilience that we start taking people in. It's like, oh, how is the old lady going to pay for her retirement? She shouldn't be paying for her retirement to begin with. What society do you have to earn enough money in your working years so you can pay for your own care and feeding when you're not working anymore? You're supposed to have a family and community to take care of you when you can't take care of yourself anymore. So we got to change those sort of things so we won't worry about, that she's not getting her dividends from Exxon anymore.
I appreciate you saying that you try to stay in the space, and tell me how successful you are sort of staying in the space of saying that there isn't like this is par for the course of life, right? Of all these things. But most people I don't think are there. And you talked about that they're searching for answers. They're uncomfortable with that dissonance or that uncertainty, And that I think is true for, you could talk about people who fall down QAnon rabbit holes or whatever, and believe that they're harvesting children's organs on the moon, to make adrenochrome or whatever the hell they're doing. But you could sort of say that the people who are really concerned about climate change, resort to the same sorts of, maybe they're not the same extreme, but this idea that like renewable energy, if we just have enough wind turbines and solar panels and electric vehicles, we're going to be fine, right?
Well, those are just capitalists, Honestly,
no, I think a lot of them want an answer that allows them to not have to worry about the future or require all of this sacrifice that they feel like is unpalatable. Maybe they don't even want to make themselves.
Right.
So,
and they don't even realize that these sacrifices that they don't want to make aren't sacrifices at all. It's like, oh my God, you're not going to watch as much Netflix. Right. So what are you going to do instead? Oh my God, you're just going to have more sex. Oh, is that a sacrifice? I don't know. I mean, maybe for some, but to me, it's like you get this better life. But the interesting thing is, I do get it that people can't seem to tolerate the in-between space, that they go to this one extreme or the other, except in their real lives. 99% of the time, they're living in that in-between space. They got a job. They don't really love it, but they know they have to do it. They're married to someone not as pretty as their neighbor's wife, but It's who they're married to. Each of the things, their kid doesn't do quite as well as that one's kid, but well enough. And you deal with the in-between and everything. The only place we can't deal with it is like in the shit we see on TV. It's like, oh, well, that issue, it's these big abstract things that are operating at a scale that none of us are really directly interacting with anyway. So I feel like people are better at dealing with ambiguity on a local level. They just are this whole, and people really yelled at me. I don't even think we should be involved in a lot of these decisions anymore. I think that, 99.9% of us do not need to be involved in, President Biden's Afghan war withdrawal strategy. If 100 million people were involved in the decision, it's probably enough. 100 million people focused on that decision. And that's what? That's the 0.001% of the planet can talk about that. And the rest of us can then work on things that actually matter, like how to live more sustainably, in a direct way, how to take care of our neighbors. Personally, I would probably be doing more good for the world just caring for the people in my immediate locus. I've had enough international stage time. So the thing for me to do is to bow out, go extreme local, and model that for other people. We don't need to be in that conversation.
But it's like that conversation seems to be addictive, and it's pushed on us. And so I guess maybe turn to a little bit on how's the media changed to kind of capture our attention and direct us in these inappropriate sort of divergent paths. I know that's a lot of what we talk about.
The most engaging thing a person can do online is start to express their own opinion. I remember back when Blogger started, Blogger was like the first web blog, one of the first web blog platforms. And I got in this conversation, it was in Scandinavia actually, with Evan Williams. We're at this conference. And I was saying to him, yeah, but do we really, just because people could type doesn't mean they can write or should write. It's like, and he's like, oh, so you're threatened as a professional journalist? It's like, no, I'm not threatened. I'm just like, should these people be expressing themselves and amplified around the world? The barriers to entry were not elitism. It was like, who's willing to take the time and energy to type a whole book on a typewriter? And that was a natural barrier to entry that kind of prevented everyone but those who really cared about writing from writing a book. It was good. I mean, you got the occasional Ted Kaczynski, but even that was kind of interesting, right? Because he's that committed. But now it's like as easy as opening up your thing and even just talking into your machine gets you a global stage. No, I don't think so. I like there being some friction along the way.
Yeah, although that does eliminate the comedy that comes from self-published works, which
we get a number of those.
Yeah, but that's great. But that's what the internet, I always thought the internet was for the amateur. That was why I didn't feel it was appropriate for me to have a blog, until very, very late in the game. I was like, no, I shouldn't have one. I've got a New York Times syndicated column. In 1995, I had a syndicated column in the New York Times. How dare I clutter the public sphere with my stuff if I have a platform? This is for them, but now it's all like the same thing. You got everybody on Substack.
And now we got Bruce Springsteen and Barack Obama with a podcast competing with us.
I know. God. Well, there's desperation.
I guess it's good. I heard it's good.
I'm sure it's wonderful.
It would be cool if the two of them were singing duets of Springsteen's old songs or something. Yeah. But
the river, down to the river.
I don't know. I see, and that's where I get cynical, and I'm happy for them. They can take it, though. I could be mean to them in a way I can't be mean to normal people because they're like billionaires. They're very famous and very successful. But it's like, dudes, I feel like, Obama wants to feel cool that he gets to talk to Springsteen. Springsteen wants to feel like he's the most important pop star in the world to talk to a great American president. It just feels like that 60th birthday party of Obama's out in Martha's Vineyard or whatever with the superstar actors and stuff. It's just like, oh, come on. Do you really need to perpetuate this image of the Democratic side of things as
Right.
this elitist, star-studded, Netflix.
Apparently they
wonder
do
show.
because that's what they're doing, right? I mean,
I guess so.
It was for me. It was when Madonna started writing children's books. That's when I knew it was all done.
Yeah, based on Kabbalistic principles.
that's true.
What?
Yeah.
What
They're
principles?
based
Kabbalah.
on Kabbalistic. They're Kabbalah. The characters are named after the parts of the tree of
Kabbalah was
life.
in the Hollywood set for a while. It's this Jewish kind of mysticism
Yeah.
thing that there's all this
Yeah.
stuff around numerology and whatever. It was in
You
for
get to
a
be
hot
crazy
minute.
New Age, but feel like there's the real institution of
Right.
Judaism
It's
behind
New
it.
Age, but it's tied to this ancient literature, religion. That's
so it's
great.
got some heft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best of both worlds.
So
Yes.
so
Like
Douglas,
my-
I'm wondering if you can go further. Like,
I can't. I've gone as far as I could go.
I think you
This
can.
is me at the end of my tether.
Well, you did hint at that, like you were going to drop out and just start taking care of your neighbors before
This
you
could
go
be
and
his last recording. We could be having the last voice recordings of
No,
Douglas.
no. If I'm going to do a mic drop, I want it to be a
gonna be on
financially
Steve
rewarding
Bannon's
mic
show.
drop.
You're gonna get on Steve Bannon or Barack Obama's podcast.
right.
the same day, go both on the same day, and then
yeah.
vanish.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what I'm wondering if the blogosphere and of course more recently social media has sort of opened up the world for everybody to state their opinion and that's maybe not so good for us. Like what it doesn't seem like you're going to stuff the genie back into the lamp or the bottle. Like what's next for dealing with some of the messes that we've created in this by getting rid of the barriers to throwing your opinion out to the public.
I think a
Well-
power outage.
Yeah, I know. A nice EMP. North Korea's working on that. Don't worry. Some supersonic, hypersonic missile will explode over the Verizon switching station soon.
If this podcast ends right this minute, you'll know why, people.
It'll all be fine. No, I don't think we do it by. I mean, think about when the baby has your cell phone. How do you get it out of its hands? You dangle something else, right? And I think we do it like that. I don't think we say, "Oh, get off this stuff. It's bad for you." That's just going to make them do it more. It's like, you know what makes it so funny in my town? They're thinking about they're having this big debate about whether we're opting out of having a marijuana dispensary. And everybody's like, "Oh, we don't want a dispensary because we don't want our kids smoking pot." And it's like, if you look at the data, it's like in places where they open dispensaries, high school pot use goes down.
It's not
by
cool
like
anymore.
It's not cool anymore.
seven.
Yeah.
Right, because your parents are fucking
They see
smoking
Douglas
it.
Rushkoff go in there and they're like, God, that's
Oh
stuff.
no! Right, because it's not cool anymore, and because there's less illegal drug dealers to sell to underage people.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
now
better
that everyone
marketing.
can get just the market shrinks.
That's what happened
So
to
it's-
Facebook,
it's-
right? All
it's
of
like-
us middle-agers and older went on Facebook, right? Now the kids are like, get me out of there.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
So Facebook, the easiest way to get rid of Facebook. Unfortunately, they went and bought Instagram so they could do all the same stuff to kids
Right.
on there, or they'll get another order. Now they're going to try to buy virtual reality.
Yeah.
To do it to us there, but it's offer people alternative cultures, and that's why it's funny. I just interviewed the guy, and I forgot his name, who did the those first kind of post-punk concerts in the desert, way before Burning Man and all that. The what were they called? Something. Anyway, they were these like 100-person concerts. Like they went out in school buses and had like the meat puppets and Mike Watt and those fun LA bands, or the Sonic Youth went out there, and it was like so low key, so live, so that early punk scene was it was vital in a certain way. And I think that's what'll happen, is that we'll get some good organic live vital scenes, the same way in the industrial scene was a response to the industrial age. We're going to get a cyber, whatever the digital equivalent of a physical scene is again, and people are going to understand that they've got to keep it small scale. That if they let it get too big, like a Burning Man, you'll get Eric Schmidt will show up, and there'll be the Google camp or whatever.
Well, it's an interesting take. I didn't see this going this direction, but it reminds me a little bit of that Fleming book. What's that called?
Surviving the Future?
Surviving the Future, where he sort of talks about the importance of festivals.
Yeah,
it's like and Carnival and reviving this at a very hyper local level. I think you're right. Like most people, you don't even know that they're a QAnon rabbit hole person most of the time. They work. You see them at the grocery store. And you may not even know that until you scratch the surface. And I'm trying to figure out, like, how do you pull people back from that kind of extremism? Or do you not even work at that level? In other words, do you work on building a local culture that's more attractive than this bullshit out there? And I used to be somebody who was, we're going to like build a sustainable, equitable future by understanding ecology and the biophysical limits and, getting some sort of technocratic things right, but also, organic farming. And now if my neighbors don't eat me, I'll be pleased. Like I'm worried about the breakdown of society at this point, because the craziness is what's scaring me more than the limit to growth type stuff, and the interact. Right. And do you basically just start throwing good parties, and then people learn to love each other and agree how to get along, even if they don't agree on how to do everything in the world, or live in the messy middle? I mean, is that what you're getting at? Do I need to just throw parties?
That's probably the best solution. Throw parties, get people moving in their bodies. Moving your body is the best way to get rid of trauma. Animals have these ways that they shake and stuff after bad shit happens to them. Yeah. They shake it out. We don't have that anymore. We lost that. That's what the rave was for. That's what, ecstatic ritual and dance and all that is for. And worst case, you go do EMDR therapy or something.
What's that?
You do it in it's where you move your eyeballs back and forth, or you get, or you get electric shocks not shocks, but on either side of your earlobes or whatever. Sure. So you balance your body out again if you don't have the dance ritual ecstatic stuff. I mean, sometimes I'm profoundly worried. Like when I go online and I see everybody piling on someone talking about, they're like someone says, "Oh, I got my vaccine today," and everybody's saying, "Oh, now you're filled with microchips," or separate your poop from my poop, because otherwise I'm going to catch the microchips and I'll go online with you, and Bill Gates will be able to control me, and or any of those kinds of things. Or when I hear them talk about, the Jews and our control of the economy and all this stuff and they don't even realize there's only like 6 Jews. I mean, there's very compared to the number of people.
But Soros is super powerful, right?
There's very, yeah. And I said as a joke once, that I missed that when they 9/11, I missed the call. It was in my voicemail, but I missed it. Because there was this idea that all the Jews were called to stay away from the World Trade Center on 9/11. And then people are quoting, like on Facebook and Twitter, Rushkoff admitted it. He got the call, the Soros call. Proof.
No one has humor anymore except us.
Right. Well, except us. Except the 4 of us. And three of the people listening. But so there's that. But then on the other hand, I think because I've interacted with a lot of black-pilled people, and it's almost more like a fan fiction relationship to the news than it is anything else. It's like, no, I think Harry Potter really was Ravensdale that pretended he was a Whippledorf or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, or Spock and Kirk were definitely gay. They were definitely getting it on. These 3 episodes nodded to it. I'm sure Roddenberry was thinking that. And that's the same way I think they look at Trump and the news as entertainment. It crossed over from reality TV into reality.
I wish that was true.
I think it is. They're not taking up arms.
Maybe it's true for 97% of them, but there's still the 3%.
Right. There's the 3%.
that
right,
show up.
3%.
But
capital
look at,
Yeah.
and I know we're not supposed to say it, but the 3%, let's say the 3% is the people who would march on the Capitol and go in there. But then you look at that 3%, and really, only 3% of those had like cable ties and weapons and stuff. The other ones really were walking around in there like, oh my gosh, we're in the Capitol. And there's that guy, that senator who said, oh, if you look at the video without any explanation, it kind of looks like a weird tour of the Capitol. And honestly, he's kind of right. If you look at the majority of people, they followed the instigators and they went in there. Then they're looking around like, well, we're in the Capitol. Well, maybe I'll take something. Maybe I'll do this. So 3% of that 3%, or 0.03 of that 3% are the ones. But yeah, that's enough. If they're
enough to be
planting bombs and stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's not good.
There's still danger. I would much rather have people, putting that energy. You talked about this in that monologue, Douglas, where you're talking about it as an addiction, the addiction of finding the truth and researching, right? Versus like being part of a cult. And it'd be great if we could direct that energy, if people had that energy to trying to figure out if Spock and Kirk were gay lovers,
right.
Something innocuous,
Right. But the thing was, because I've been looking at it, I was really interested in cults for a long, long time, partly because I had friends fall into cults and things like that. And really wanted to understand their workings and studied them and wrote about them and compared them to brand cults and all that. But when I looked at the friends of mine who've gotten deep into Q or things like it, the sort of alt-right extremism stuff, ones I've really lost who are saying that, either crazy things about the vaccines or about the way government works. And while it's all metaphorically true, right, we understand Monsanto and drug companies on a metaphorical level, they are kind of controlling reality and they are addicting our crops to poisons. And there's all these things are kind of going on in a real way. But the friends I see who fell deep into it, a lot of them are ex-addicts. They are NA and AA people or people who've had addiction problems before. And when I track or trace, and I can look at all the texts I got from them and the emails over time, I mean, they're up late at night, reading Twitter, scrolling through, waiting to get that dopamine hit. Mm-hmm. And then they tweet, they come up with a way of connecting two ideas that hasn't been connected before. They connect it and make the tweet, and then they get the positive feedback on it. Maybe they then start getting enough positive feedback that they can open up a Substack. Then they get an audience of people who are feeding off them, and they're feeding off that. And I could see it as a chemical phenomenon, really more than a cult thing or a lead thing. And that, goes back to, our dear friends, who did the Social Dilemma movie and made all these addictive algorithms to begin with. This is the way the technology is designed to draw people in.
I think the combination of that with the fact that I think as things become more and more uncertain and strange and crazy making, the more people I think are reverting towards being part of a tribe of a sorts. And then you have to do all this virtue signaling, to belong. And people take more and more extreme positions, and then the entire group kind of goes in that direction to show that they belong, because not belonging to something, a community of sorts, is like in our genetic code is like, you're afraid you're going to die because you're going to be basically on your own.
Yeah. And in this society where it's all about having money, you need your job to pay for your health care like we were talking about. You don't have any skills of survival. You don't have land you can provision from. It's terrifying to think, I have no control anymore of anything. But God, you can get even a virtual tribe and think you've got some truth, and there's some white savior. What do they call them, the white hats or whatever, or on the left spectrum, it's going to be get rid of the fossil fuel companies and you allow technology to take off.
But the problem here is people are trying to compensate for the feeling of being alone online by joining these crazy affinity groups or getting black pilled or white pilled or whatever, where the fact of the matter is you're always going to be alone online.
Right.
You're alone
It's the
online.
hungry
You are
ghost.
alone.
Yes.
You're alone. Sorry. And when you're with people, if you want to be not alone, make friends in the real world.
Yeah.
And when you make friends in the real world, none of this stuff, I mean, I hate to say it like this, but none of this stuff matters.
Right.
When you're making friends in the real world, it doesn't even really matter whether you think like abortion should be illegal or any of that kind of stuff isn't what makes you feel less alone. You know, it's something really different. I felt really not alone in the trauma of, we all got flooded here in my town really badly. I mean, it was mudslides. It was really horrible. My basement had like 3 feet of mud in it from the thing. And, you know, we were all bailing each other's houses out and digging people out. And it was, you know, side by side doing fireman brigade carries of buckets of crap. You know, me and a Trump guy and a pot smoker and a businessman, another Trump guy and another. And the only thing that differed between us was whether we thought this was a 1 in 1,000 year reign or whether we now think this is the new normal. And we're basically making bets with each other. I think we're going to get another one of these in the next 2 years. I'll bet you $100 that we don't. All right. I'll bet you. And that's very different, right? So we disagree on, he's a Trumpy, I'm a Biden-y, I'm a climate activist, he's a climate denier. And we make a bet in our town about what it is, but we're all involved in the actual work of, in the meantime, which is all that matters. In the meantime, we're going to dig these guys out. We're going to put up better walls. We're going to build a better drain here and hope for the best.
People do love working together as they feel it's important work. It's got a purpose. I mean, you know, an assembly line making a widget or gizmo is different than helping your town, planting trees, whatever, cleaning up a stream.
And the feedback that we're getting, honestly, so we're a bunch of guys of varying levels of machismo digging this house out. The young woman who's, you know, the young married woman whose house it is this, you know, gorgeous artist in our town. And as we dig, we see her smiling, and we're getting all sorts of tribal, organic, biological, social, cultural feedback of who's making her smile the most, and oh, she just hugged me, and oh, she's just bringing out butterscotch brownies for us now. And I mean, it was so not alone. Put it that way. It was so not alone. And it's so much more satisfying than even, you know, giving a great riposte to Bannon online or something. It's like, that's nothing. That fades in a second, you know, that dopamine hit compared to this full-on oxytocin love fest.
Yeah, you know, something that you mentioned in the monologue that we were talking about earlier that's tied to this is it almost seems like we're too smart for our own good, or how the intellect kind of can stymie us. So instead of just go out, make friends, do stuff in the real world with real people, we do kind of what you were talking about, like try to get the zinger or try to say something that we think is influential. And then what you talked about with the intellect is what actually allows us to rationalize these addictions and this sort of lonely online behavior. And that was kind of an aha for me to think about how almost like unevolutionarily useful intelligence might be under some circumstances.
Right. It's almost always after the fact.
Right.
You know,
That's right.
Or to helping justify, why are we here? Because the climate is coming apart, because the systems of social oppression, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, it's important, but in the end, I mean, well, this is the sort of the Jews versus Jesus approach. You know, the Jews were like, let's be really rational about this and draw up the Talmud, a system of laws. All right. So if someone's goat knocks over someone else's fence and tramples his garden, Is it his fault? Well, yeah, if the fence was in good repair and the goat knocked it over, then it's the goat owner's. But if the fence had holes in it, then it's the fence guy's problem. And, really, let's work it all out. And when Jesus came along was like, look, you could get ever granular with this rationality but in the end, you got to just get it. If you get it in your heart, then you're just going to be nice to each other. And that's going to take care of 99% of all this legal, stuff. And it's interesting. I think you need both. Finally.
Well, that's the answer. Jews for Jesus. They exist. Douglas, I mean, they found it.
They figured it out.
Yeah, exactly.
They did in a way, yeah. But Jews for Jesus are end up with a kind of a more born again extremism. It's like the BTs in Judaism. They're about these returnees that are like super Jews.
Right.
When you're like a born again Jew, it's like, don't be a born again anything. Just be born once. You be born once. And that's also sort of my DMT thing. It's like DMT, it's cool, but I think maybe you only need to die once too.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll be fine.
Yeah. Is that the frog one?
No, I've heard about the frog when they scratch it into your skin or something.
I don't even know.
I just don't want to do that. I don't like tattoos. I don't like stuff like that.
But this, what's interesting is like some sort of shared culture. It seems like it's really crucial that you have this some kind of shared understanding that you can look at almost anyone. If they're not your best buddy, at least you recognize them as like part of your culture. And that's a little bit of what I worry about, is that we've been able to, through all this modern technology, to splinter so much. And what are we going to find some common ground over, right? That's what I'm trying to wrap my brain around.
I mean, I'm into multiculturalism as opposed to melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Canadians went all multicultural, where America was like, well, big melting pot, we're all Americans. And Canadians were always like, I'm Irish Canadian, I'm Native Canadian, I'm this. And I do get that. You don't want to just mush everything into mud.
Right.
It's okay to have all that little exciting, oh, look at that Chicana, look at that Jewess, look at that, that Norwegian man. It's like, oh, whoa, those are cool. I mean, I guess eventually that goes away because everyone has sex with everyone and we all turn into that sort of mocha looking dancing people in the Matrix, right?
Like Brazilians.
Everyone looks kind of, exactly, everyone looks Brazilian, right? Or Creole or something.
God,
we get there eventually.
Party in
but
Rio.
Creole's so spicy. Creole is so spicy anyway, right?
Yeah.
They didn't just get bland, but I respect the multi-culti thing about it and maintaining some sense of identity. It's just the rigidity, everything being so discrete is what feels very digital. It's like, which chat room are you in? Are you in this one or that one? And it's like, I really got to pick here. It's like, no, you don't. You just walk
it's finding
around.
this balance. Like we keep talking about it a little bit. It seems like it's not an either or really. It's I can be the Irish American, but I can still be American or Canadian or whatever. But what are we? Are we losing any kind of cohesive? Is there a totem we all look to anymore or not? That's the worry I have.
I have two thoughts on that. One is we've had a dominant story in the United States, and it's not working for people. Right, and that dominant story was one of progress and material progress and the pursuit of individuals' happiness and well-being or whatever. Right, we became individualistic, and that was the thing that we had in common. And it's not working for people, and I think that's part of why people are so angry. Right, is because they don't have an alternative story. The alternative story could be one of communitarianism, and belonging and caring for others. The challenge I see with that is, I don't know how big the town is that you're in, Douglas, but we live in these, mega cities. We've created these urban environments, and we make decisions collectively with 330 million people in this country trying to make decisions about things. The scale is just so fucking big.
Well, yeah, but that's why cities ended up, for the most part, cities and city-states ended up with kind of Judaism-inspired or Islam-inspired kind of universal, abstract, monotheist people, so that you could end up with these universal, cosmopolitan, tolerant values. The great cities of history would have these, interfaith debates and conventions where you'd get, the Hindus and the Islams and the Jews and the Christians would all come into the same, and they would have almost like intellectual competitions where they would argue about stuff, but they all understood we're living together in the same, when you read about ancient Istanbul and Cairo and these places, there were periods of time, for 500 years at a time when they were tolerant. Is that the word? We're not supposed to use that word now, I know, but they were accepting of one another's differences. City people are that way. Rural people tend, and I'm not saying this in some prejudiced way, but because they're connected to the land and a smaller community, they tend to be more, in all the best ways, they tend to be more provincial. They have local gods, they're less trusting of the stranger. It's just the way. It's the way it goes. I mean, Mumford wrote about this really well in Technics and Civilization. And we almost aren't allowed to talk about it now because it sounds, so red state and blue state. But there is an environmental proclivity toward, if you're in a small town that's got less turnover and less strangers coming in and less different sorts of people, it was settled by the Dutch in this time, settled by the Irish in that time, you're going to have a different kind of, you're going to be a more conservative culture than some city. That's why when I mean, it's nice that they don't have to now, but it used to be, if you were a gay kid growing up out in North Dakota, the first thing you'd want to do,
get the hell out of North Dakota.
Get the hell out, get to LA, New York, San Francisco, where there's other weird bohemian people and they're more accepting of that and all. And it's great that you can be a trans kid in a high school in South Dakota now and not get beat up, hopefully. Mm-hmm. But you can be, there's a trans kid on Roseanne, there's this, it's around. So, or the Connors, whatever that is, because now Roseanne.
Can I give a quick shout out to Taylor Brorby, who is is a friend of mine. He's gay and he grew up in North Dakota, and he's got a new book called Boys in Oil: Growing Up Gay in a Fractured Land.
Whoa, that's
perfect.
A good
Beautiful.
title.
And did he stay in North Dakota? Did he go back?
I think he's moved around a lot as a English lit professor, but he goes back a lot and still feels like that's his home and his home ecosystem.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. I think that's a really good insight, Douglas. And it does go back, it's deep in our history. And I think, so think about this. Think about, the so-called flyover states or whatever. A lot of the disgruntledness is in these rural areas. And do you think there's been too much of a swing where, there's more intense urbanization, more and more wealth has accumulated in these urban centers? And do you think it's then gone just kind of too far where our culture, where everyone from those rural places is looking and they're going, God, these people, I don't understand them at all. They have nothing to do with me. They don't care about me. What is going on?
I think it's the wrong structural analysis to call it too far, right? You can never go too far in our acceptance of people who are different from us. I don't think it's a matter of, we've gone too far in the trans-accepting direction for these people to be able to tolerate. It's more, there's been, in some ways, too much. It's a way of the way of demanding certain kinds of acceptance has been off-putting.
Off-putting. That's the term I was going to get. Off-putting.
And it's tricky. So it's like I'm learning how to be anti-racist, right? And I understand that by the rules that have been established, I'm supposed to be, and I get it, I get why. I'm declared anti-racist at the same time that I know I'm racist and that I don't yet understand fully what anti-racist means. Because anti-racism, the definition of anti-racism is changing based on what the people who are entitled to define anti-racism say. So I have to, and it's tricky, so I have to relinquish my autonomy over my ideology and accept. Do you know what I mean? And that's a really hard place to ask people to go. It's like, wait a minute, just tell me what I'm supposed to believe today, and I'll do that. And I realize the goalposts are moving. It's really, and they're just like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And there are simple ways to say, okay, we want a bathroom for these folks, but we're not going to take your bathroom away from you either, because you grew up in a time when it was really weird to have a guy, or what you think of as a guy, in the bathroom while you're changing your tampon or something, and you're afraid, of this, or of guys in the bathroom because you're afraid of being, raped or molested or something, or someone seeing something. You got to, come on, figure out ways for everyone to have a bathroom that they're comfortable in, or put in all the separate little doors the way restaurants do. There's ways to deal with these things that don't, that introduce people to social justice in a way that doesn't frighten them quite as much.
I think
and I get it. And you want to frighten them, you can frighten them. You're mad at them and mad at their parents and all that. That's fine. Go for it. If that's the theory of change that you're adopting, is to create some, to stir up some stuff and to have these people think immediately now. All right. But then, in terms of the skillfulness quotient, you're going to see how people are going to react to that.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of this comes down to empathy. And I think if we're asking people to empathize and to recognize and embrace people's identity in different ways, I think it would probably behoove us to extend the same empathy to their journey to get there. I mean, you talked about bathrooms. I remember being in the De Young Museum in San Francisco, and they had changed the signs on the bathrooms. They basically made everything unisex, and there was like a crowd of people outside the bathroom doors of what had been the men's room and the women's room. People didn't know where to go, and some people were going in one, some people were going in the others, and they still had the urinals up in what had been the men's bathroom, and women were going there, or little girls, and they were just confused, and I was thinking, like, maybe this is not the way. Maybe the way is to try to explain and to help people to understand and recognize that they might feel uncomfortable just because it's different and it takes time. I also think this does connect a little bit, sort of the urban-rural thing does connect to economics. You see people prospering in urban communities who are also, you feel like, talking down to you.
Right.
Right.
And those things, I think, feed on each other and create a lot of resentment,
Yeah.
Right. And there are, to be fair, there are a lot of people, a lot of lefties in the city who do consider the red state Trump people a basket of deplorables. They really do. Mm-hmm. And that's unfortunate. They do need to engage with human beings a lot more and see. It was interesting. So, one of my neighbors is a staunch Trump supporter. And when I speak to him about why, he says, well, because my kids are cops. And then I got into a discussion with him about saying, well, do you really think that your kids who are cops are safer in a Trump America? Say, well, no, well, not necessarily, but they're supported. They're more supported. So yeah, okay. So you're interesting. So you're saying you'd rather your kids be in more danger defending white people from black people with their thin blue line or whatever that's supposed to mean. You'd rather that than there actually be less violence and less stuff for them to have to defend against. So that's interesting. If I was a parent of cops, I'd want to vote for whoever's going to have the most peaceful, the most peaceful situation possible.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I always appreciate about you, Douglas. The ability to ask a question that, for one, it's engaging with your neighbor, but it's just such a good question that you can't help but maybe see some new points of view or think a little bit differently. And I really appreciate that.
Oh, I appreciate that. The problem is people who ask questions eventually, and it's weird. I'm wondering if I can make it to retirement before I get, eventually canceled. Because event questions from one side or the other, either that it becomes so intolerable because of, alt-right people doxing me or something, or so intolerable because I've said something that offended the left and I get canceled. Questions are tricky. The questions have to come, and this is the hardest part, they have to come out of good faith inquiry.
Yes.
There's that way that Trump would say, well, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Right.
Is Trump being funded by Soros's pederasty fund? I'm just asking. Did Hillary Clinton molest 30,000 babies?
Yes.
Just a question. I'm not saying just a question. Those aren't questions.
They're
right?
not genuine. So
Right.
I think genuine empathy, genuine love, genuine care, genuine concern. I think if you can express those, this is what I'm drawing from. If you can express questions where it's clear from the other person, maybe because you're not online, maybe because you're face to face and people know how to recognize facial expressions and sincerity, maybe that's the way to break through. I'm guessing. I'm groping for ways to break through.
I'm
this
hoping.
divide.
I'm hoping. But that's largely why I decided to do a podcast rather than like some kind of TV show or YouTube thing, because I feel like voice is more human, warmer than video, right? Video. You look at successful video, it's like and they're fine, like the Young Turks or something. It's like it's got a video. There's a coolness, as McLuhan would say. There's a coolness to video, which doesn't engender the same sort of community tribal thing that sound does. Here we are doing sound, so we're in people's ears, moving their little tympanic membranes around. You know what I mean? We're moving their body, or ideally we're coming through speakers where they can actually feel us in their solar plexus. The sound is moving their body, and that it warms people in a certain way to something else, to something that's not the sort of the cool Obama logic, or you know what I mean? It's or even the Trumpian outrage. It engenders a desire in the listener to empathize, to somehow not to conform, but to take in. You know what I mean? To take in what we're doing, rather than to just be critical of it before it's even. You got to taste when you're listening. You got to taste the person. When you're looking, you kind of don't have to.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd be totally self-conscious too all the time if this was a video thing. You're paying more attention now. Okay, is my posture okay? Did I manscape my eyebrows well enough? Did I get enough shiny bags under my eyes or not?
The answer's no.
What's that?
How do you manscape your eyebrows?
My wife
with
does
the scissors.
My wife does.
Does she have a machine?
No, she uses little scissors and stuff, and she kind of with a comb and just.
Doesn't
Wow.
you could just get some duct tape and pull those suckers off.
I know, I want them. They're good. But yeah, no. I'm looking more like one of those Muppet characters as I age.
I got hair in my ear.
Yeah, that too. I wasn't going to go there, but thank you. I have the
Yeah.
same issues.
That happened
Maybe
around
that-
50.
Maybe that helps vibrate
Exactly.
your tympanic membrane better.
I can only hope.
It helps you listen.
If I grow
better.
them long enough, it could serve as sensory whiskers when I'm wandering through the woods.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, now you know you're in Crazy Town. We're talking about ear hair and manscaping. From one set of podcasters to another, Douglas, we really want to thank you for being here. And hey, we're on opposite sides of the coast, but if there's ever a chance that I can help you carry buckets of mud out of the basement,
There'll be lots of chances,
yeah.
Rob. There's
I
gonna be lots of
would
chances.
really enjoy that.
Well, I was almost in Miami in January. I got invited. Peter Thiel's people invited me to Hereticon. Have you heard of this
Really?
thing?
What is
Yeah.
I
Hereticon?
don't know what it is.
That's almost better than getting invited to go on Bannon. And that I just said yes to immediately. I mean, and people are like, really, you would go? It's like, of course I would go. See, now that is engaging with the others. You go to a conference with, this is the Peter Thiel people.
Yeah.
These are them. These are them.
Yeah.
This is them. but like relatively smart ones and super rich ones. They're like billionaires who are like paying for people not to go to college and stuff. It's like a whole, they got this whole worldview, and it's like, oh my God. But I was scared to go down to Florida with the COVID thing and flying, and but maybe I should have. Now that COVID's back down there, it went down. It's going to come up here. I should have gone, but I'll come to Florida. I want to see the last of the Miami Vice mansions. And stuff.
I guess the Make-A-Wish Foundation is going to have to make my wish come true and give me that mansion.
Yes, but, I can't wait.
No, you don't want that. Make-A-Wish is like if you're like dying of cancer.
I know. That's the other thing. Do we really need the enticement of a mansion that's going to go bye-bye in a decade in order to give money to help kids with cancer? I mean, come on.
What's in it for me, Rob? It's always what's in it for me. Come on. That's the American way.
Right.
No, I would love a reason to go down there. I haven't gone down since my grandma died.
Aw.
It's a typical line, I guess, but she
a
was
Jewish
in West
grandmother
Boca.
down in Florida?
In Florida.
Yeah. That's not a stereotype.
No. Oh well.
It was great hanging out with you in
stereotype.
Crazy Town, Douglas. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm happy to be in Crazy. Do you have a theme song?
Yeah, we do actually.
Yeah, we kind of do.
Good.
Yeah, you'll get to hear
I look
it.
forward.
Yeah, you'll hear it. It's a nice one. It's a friend of mine in Corvallis, so we took from his little group, and so that's got very local music. Douglas, you'll appreciate that.
All right. Will it be playing under us now?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, cool.
Right now. You can hear it, can't you?
I love it.
Strain
I
your
love
ears,
it.
Douglas. You can hear
Love it. I'm listening into the future.
All right.
Thanks
Thanks,
for
guys.
All
spending
right.
time
Love
with
you
us.
guys.
It was great.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
That's our show. Thanks for joining us in Crazy Town. This is a program of Post Carbon Institute. Get more info at postcarbon.org.